I have a few housekeeping matters to share before I call the meeting to order, beginning with a reminder to everyone that this meeting is being recorded and webcast. Today's meeting will be run in accordance with the Open Meeting Act as required by law. I would ask all of us to please turn our cell phones to silent. You may notice that members accessing their laptops, phones, or other devices during the meeting. They are using the devices solely to access the board meeting materials that are in electronic format. The board welcomes public comment on any item on the agenda, and it is the board's intent to ask for public comment prior to the board taking action on any agenda item. If for some reason I forget to ask for public comment on an agenda item and you wish to speak on that item, please raise your hand and you will be recognized. To better assist the board in accurately transcribing the minutes of the meeting, members of the public who make a comment may be asked to disclose their name and association. However, disclosure of that information is not required by law and is purely voluntary. I want to remind all speakers to please stay on topic and keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. If you agree with a prior speaker, please do not repeat the comments, but rather state that you agree with comments already made. I would like to call the meeting to order and ask that Ms. Bruning please call the roll.
Thank you, Ms. Sunkis.
Here, present.
Thank you, Ms. Brewer. Thank you, Mr. Dodge Nam.
Dodge Nam, present.
Thank you, Mr. Manayan.
Present.
Thank you, Ms. Tagade.
Present.
Quorum reached.
Thank you. Our first order of business is to welcome our newest board member, Michael Dodge Nam. Mr. Dodge Nam, who is from Los Angeles, was appointed in 2023 to the Court Reporters Board by the Speaker of the Assembly. Mr. Dodge Nam currently serves as the Chief Business Officer of Roar Social. With over 2 decades of success, he has a track record of building and growing companies at the intersection of media and technology. Prior to Roar Social, he was the Chief Operating Officer of Care Solace, where he focused on improving mental health care for school systems and their families. He has served in C-level roles at a wide variety of media and technology ventures and online publishing giants, and has also held executive and management positions at Fortune 500 companies. He holds a BA in political science from the University of Chicago and an MBA from the Harvard Business School. Welcome, Mr. Michael Dodge Nam. Our next item on the agenda is a resolution for our outgoing board member, Davina Hurt. For the board's consideration is the following resolution. Whereas Davina Hurt has faithfully and devotedly served as a member of the Court Reporters Board from February 26, 2013 through June 28, 2023, and whereas she served as chair from June 26, 2015 to November 20, 2020, and as vice chair from November 19, 2013 to June 26, 2015, and she served as chair and member of the Best Practice Pointers Task Force, co-chair and member of the Voice Writers Task Force, co-chair of the Non-Licensee Owned Firms Subcommittee, and member of the Sunset Review Task Force, and whereas she testified before the legislature during the board's Sunset Review hearings, and she worked tirelessly on multiple firm registration bills to successfully pass and implement board oversight to protect California consumers when hiring licensee-owned and non-licensee-owned entities providing court reporting services. Whereas she was integral in developing 2 board strategic plans and provided direction on reaching the board's goals. And Whereas she has more than 18 years of professional experience as an attorney at law, specializing in international public law and human rights, as well as securities law and corporate law. And whereas throughout her years of service, at all times, Davina Hurt gave fully of herself and her ideas and acted forthrightly and conscientiously, always with the public interest and welfare in mind. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the members of the Court Reporters Board express heartfelt appreciation to Davina Hurt for the outstanding contribution she made during her years of service on the Court Reporters Board and to the consumers of California. Presented this first day of September 2023, Robin Sunkeys, Board Chair, Yvonne K. Fenner, Executive Officer. Davina, thank you for your service over the past decade plus. The board and California consumers have benefited greatly from your contributions, as has the court reporting profession. Davina has been a guiding force to the Court Reporters Board and leaves big shoes to fill, as the saying goes. You will be well missed. Thank you. Does anyone wish to make any comments before we vote? Board Member Bruning? I'm sorry. Board Member Brewer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As a fairly new board member, although I've been here for almost 2 years now, I have to say that Davina has modeled exemplary board service and behavior, and I have the highest respect and admiration for her. And as a licensee, I thank her sincerely for her years of work and for what she has done for this board, for the consumers, and for the profession. We've had some amazing accomplishments through Davina's time, and absolutely due to her hard work, dedication, and leadership. And as Robin said, you'll be missed. Thank you so much.
Board Member Manayan.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to echo Board Member Brewer's words. I was a fairly new appointee as well, and Ms. Hurt welcomed me and taught me what it meant to be an actual an exemplary member of this board. So I'd like to thank her for her service and for her time.
Thank you. Board Member Tagade.
Yes, I would echo the sentiments of our other board members and just thank Davina so much for all of her service, her passion, the just impressive wealth of knowledge that she brought to the board as a public servant, and really just showing how to be a public member in particular on a board, and just so appreciate the accomplishments that she's brought. So thank you, Davina.
Thank you. Ms. Fenner.
Oh, Davina, if we only had a nickel for every mile that we walked through the Capitol in pursuit of firm registration. Beach in Fiji. We got there, and it's a beautiful thing for staff to be able to assist consumers who have complaints irrespective of who owns the court reporting firm, and we owe it to your dedication and perseverance. I'd like to say I loved working with you as the chair, but the truth of the matter is your demand for excellence pushed me to the top of my game every day. It wasn't always easy, but it was always the right thing to do. And I really grew to appreciate your unending capacity for hard work and your commitment to getting the job done. It has been an honor to have served with you, and it's an even greater honor to call you friend. I wish you every success in your journey as it continues.
Ms. Bruning, would you please call the roll to vote on this item?
Thank you, Ms. Brewer.
Aye.
Sorry about that. Would somebody like to make a motion for us to vote on? Thank you.
I would
Ms.
love to make the motion, please.
To adopt the resolution.
Yes.
Is there a second?
I will second the motion.
Thank you. Any public comment?
This is the moderator. If anyone on WebEx would like to make a public comment, we have instructions on the screen. You may click the hand icon to raise your hand, or you may look for the question mark icon, type the word comment and click send, and comments will be taken in the order received, and we will be limiting people to 3 minutes. Are there any comments on the resolution? I do not see any requests for public comment. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you. And just as a point of information, Ms. Hurt does have her hand raised for a request to unmute herself.
And I would like to take the vote, and then I absolutely will open it up to Ms. Hurt for her comments.
Thank you for the instruction.
We have a motion by Ms. Tagade to adopt the resolution previously stated, and a second by Board Member Brewer. Any board discussion? I'm sorry,
Point of order, Board Member Dodge.
made the motion. I apologize. I apologize, correction. Board Member Dodge Nam made the second. Is there any board discussion before we vote? Ms. Bruning?
Thank you. Ms. Brewer?
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Dodgenam.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Manayan.
Aye.
Thank you, Ms. Tagade.
Aye.
Thank you, Ms. Sunkis.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you. Ms. Hurt, I would call on you for your comments.
Well, good morning, folks. Here in the San Francisco Bay Area. Sorry I cannot be with all of you in person. I want to thank you all for those kind words and this recognition. I was telling my daughter the other day, I don't know where the time has gone. When folks say a decade plus, it's kind of scary and interesting, but I genuinely love the challenges and the successes of my time on this board, working hard for California consumers, aiding to just maintain the rule of law, policy, regulations, keeping the records safe. I think it's especially important in times like these. You all have a very important job. I'd like to thank the various speakers of the House that have appointed me to this role over the years, Perez, Rendon, and Tony Atkins, talking about a stellar professional team on the board, amazing women leading the way, Yvonne Finner, Paula Bruning, Connie Kunkel are just a few names that come to mind. Yvonne, we definitely have battle scars and wounds, but at the end of the day, we got a lot of regulation and policy across and did great work for the consumers. And so I will tell you all, when it came to serving as chair and vice chair, it was one of the most easy and more seamless leadership roles because of the professionalism of the CRB staff team. And I really, really mean that. As some of you know, I also sit as vice mayor in my city and have been mayor before. And folks would say, wait, you're also on a state board? And I was able to do all of those things because of the CRB team and staff. They knew their job backwards and forwards, true commitment to consumers, and did it with a small budget, some opposition, but always, again, with professionalism and, dare I say, a smile. So I want to thank all of you for that. I also want to thank the numerous board members I served with over the years. I've learned so much from your wisdom, your lived experiences, And of course, all of you who are now sitting on the board. I thank you for your time and your wisdom as well. And I know that this board is in good hands from the work that we've all done together. And of course, I want to thank all the stakeholders, the consultants, the court reporters who spoke to me, passed on their wisdom, and also gave me grace in times when I was trying to get up to speed on the issues that were really important. Some have asked me, what was it like after so many years? And honestly, the time went really fast, and it was partially what I expected, except how long the legislative process takes. So if that's something I can pass on to all of you, you will all do great work, but buckle in for the time it takes to go through that democratic process to get rules and regulations passed. It's all worth it, but it is time consuming. I think I accomplished a lot of what I wanted to do, with the exception of one emerging issue, partially because the time is not ripe, but I want to lean on all of you and press upon the importance of AI and the technology innovations that are coming. And the board's going to need to think really deeply and create policy to meet this moment. You have a whole board of really smart, intelligent folks, fresh lenses and perspectives. So I'm excited about what you all end up doing, but this is a transformative time, and you all are going to need to be really bold so that you protect the consumers and all those who work in this industry. As folks know, Yvonne, you know that I always have a quote. I'll end with this. I read once that when you're engaged in what you love to do, it's like driving in the fast lane. Time flies by and more roads open up to you. Alternative routes you may not have ever known existed. And the time did fly by, a decade plus. I really enjoyed my time here on the board. For me, I'll continue working hard for the state. As some of you all know, I am an appointee by Governor Newsom to the California Air Resources Board. So I will be in Sacramento still often. And if I can be of any assistance to all of you in protecting California consumers and court reporting, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm glad to help where I can. And I thank you all for the time.
Thank you so much, Davina.
Thank you.
We will now turn to agenda item 3, public comment on items not on the agenda. Before we invite speakers to begin, I would ask individuals making comments to not discuss pending complaints, pending applications, or pending disciplinary actions that may come before the board for a decision. Such discussions are considered ex parte communications, as they could provide information to the board members that is outside of the record, which is in violation of the Administrative Procedure Act. Therefore, such discussions could create a conflict and lead to a board decision being challenged in Superior Court. The board can receive comments regarding the board's processes in general, but it cannot receive comments on specific case circumstances where the decision is still pending. Board staff is available to speak with you about any pending matter. In addition, the board would ask that the public address the board as a whole and not individual board members. Please be aware that public comment during this agenda item should provide information to the board members and is not a discussion between the board members and the public. The only action board members can take is to listen to comments and decide whether they want a future agenda item on the topic. No other action can be taken on the item at this meeting. Though this may seem at times like the board members are not being responsive, following these guidelines is critical to ensure the rules of the Open Meeting Act are followed to avoid compromising the speaker's goals or the board's mission. With that, is there anyone wishing to offer public comment?
This is the DCA moderator, and we have opened up the WebEx Q&A feature to facilitate public comment. First, we'll take comment from people in the room, and then we will take comment from people logged in through WebEx. If you're on WebEx, you may click the hand icon to raise your hand, or you may click the question mark icon, type the word comment in that text box, and click send. Each speaker will have 3 minutes, and as a reminder, this is for items that are not on the current agenda. Any comments from our WebEx attendees? And I do not see any requests for comment from WebEx, and I understand there are no attendees in person. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
And just one correction, we do have one attendee in person,
Thank you.
but she's not asking to make a comment.
Perfect. Thank you.
We will now move on to our next agenda item, which is approval of the March 28, 2023 meeting minutes. Are there any other additions or corrections to the minutes from the board members? Board Member Brewer.
I have some corrections that are a little fussy, you know, being a court reporter, that's kind of the nature of the beast. But they're really just typos. Is it appropriate to go through those?
Sure.
Okay. Bear with me, please. So if we go to page 13 of our board packets, 5 of 19 of the minutes, in the 1, 2, 3, the fourth full paragraph down, right above item 4.3, in the middle line, applications should be applications, 91 applications. At least you know I'm reading this, right? Page 15 of our booklet, 7 of 19 of the minutes. The first full paragraph, or actually second full paragraph, starts with my name. At the end of that first line, it's ITS should be IT apostrophe S. And if we move on to page 18 of the booklet, 10 of 19 of the minutes. Okay, never mind. That comment I got answered and it's not relevant. Page 21 of our booklet, 13 of 19 of the minutes. Third paragraph from the bottom. Second line. Ms. Sunkeys did not see a need to for a task force. Delete the word to, T-O, please. Page 23 of our booklet, 15 of 19 of the minutes. If you go 2/3 the way down the page, section 8, workforce development, first paragraph, middle line, draft responses, work from board artifacts. I believe that that word work should be deleted because it's actually duplicating the same thing earlier in the sentence. Page 25, 17 of 19 of the minutes. First paragraph, last line of that paragraph. Responsible to administer a fair test. Oh, I'm sorry, responsibility to administer a fair test. Add the word TO to. Page 26 of our booklet, 18 of 19 of the minutes. 1, 2, 3. Under section 12, the third paragraph, fourth line down, middle of that line. There's also a perception of that it's, that should read, delete of, it should read that it's, IT apostrophe S, easy enough. And yes, So it currently says there's also a perception of that it's easy. It should read, there's also a perception that it's IT apostrophe S. And then if you go down 2 more paragraphs, the paragraph starting Ms. Sunkey's added, 3rd line, end of that line, time should be times, plural with an S. And that's it for all my picayune little corrections. And please don't take this as any lack of appreciation for the very thorough and accurate minutes. Great job.
Are there any other additions or corrections to the minutes from board members? Seeing no other corrections or additions, may I have a motion to approve these as submitted as amended?
Motion to adopt.
And do we have a second? I'm sorry, a motion moved by Board Member Manayan to adopt as amended. Do we have a second?
Second.
Is there anyone from the public who wishes to comment on the minutes?
This is the WebEx moderator. If you would like to make a comment on the minutes or the motion and you are logged into WebEx, you may raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon, or you may click on the question mark icon, type the word comment in that text box and click send. If you are a call-in user, you may press *3 to raise your hand. Are there any comments on the minutes or the motion? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Yes. Yes,
Thank you.
please. Ms. Bruning, would you please call the roll on the vote on this item?
Thank you, Ms. Brewer.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Dodgenham.
Since I was not a member of the board or in attendance, I will abstain.
Thank you, Mr. Manayan.
Aye.
Thank you, Ms. Chagade.
Aye.
Ms. Sunkey's.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Turning to our next agenda item, I would like to welcome Ms. Karina Moreno from the Department of Consumer Affairs, Board and Bureau Relations, who will be presenting the board with an update. A warm welcome to you.
Good morning. My name is Karina Moreno from the Department of Consumer Affairs. Thank you for this opportunity to join you today and present the DCA update. On behalf of the department, I would like to welcome Michael Dodgenham to the board. I would also like to acknowledge and thank Vice Chair Davina Hurt for your many years of service. Finally, I would like to thank all members who continue to serve on the board and protect the public. To begin, I would like to provide an update for diversion, equity, and inclusion, also referred to as DEI. On May 12, 2023, DCA's DEI Steering Committee held its quarterly meeting in person and elected Yafana Lamar as chairperson. Yafana currently serves as the department's tribal liaison and is the chief of legislation for the Contractors State Licensing Board. In addition, Paul Sanchez, executive officer for the Speech Language Pathology, Audiology, and Hearing Aid Dispensers Board, was elected to serve as the vice chair of the committee. During the meeting, the committee discussed a variety of topics, which included training, strategic planning, and other DEI activities. Providing employees access to DEI training is a priority for the steering committee, and in June, DCA began offering 3 DEI courses, which are available to all DCA employees. The courses are Understanding the Value of DEI in the Workplace, How to Decode Our Unconscious Bias and Unleash the Power of Generational Differences. The response from employees to participate in these new DEI learning opportunities has been significant with high registration and attendance numbers. DCA is comprised of approximately 3,500 employees, and the department is tracking training statistics quarterly. As of June 30th, Solid has provided 19 DEI-related trainings for 733 DCA employees. The steering committee is pleased to announce that outside consultant Dr. Bernard Gibson will provide in-person DEI training to DCA managers, supervisors, and leaders in October. In addition, Dr. Gibson will provide virtual training to board members on the morning of October 9th, 2023. Dr. Gibson has 20 years corporate experience managing teams and training employees in business effectiveness and extensive teaching experience at various colleges, including serving as adjunct facility since 2006 at University of Massachusetts School of Business and Profession Studies. Information on registering for this virtual training will be sent out soon. For those that are unable to attend, the training portion will be recorded and available online at a later date. Moving on to in-person meetings and the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act. The changes to the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act that allowed board members to not have to notice their meeting location or meet in an ADA accessible location expired on July 1st, 2023. Therefore, as July 1st, 2023, public meetings are subject to the traditional pre-COVID requirements for open meetings. DCA boards and bureaus should be prepared to conduct public meetings in compliance with the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act. This includes whether a meeting is held at a single centralized location or at multiple teleconference locations. Each physical meeting location will need to be identified in the meeting public notices and agendas. Board members must attend meetings in person at the notice meeting locations. All notice meeting locations include locations where a single board member must be ADA accessible, have an agenda posted, and be open to the public. The public will be permitted to attend meetings at any notice meeting location. Members of the public must be able to hear the meeting and participate in the public comment from each location. The department has a Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act guide available and has provided your executive officer with a list of available meeting locations throughout the state. SB 544, which may allow for some meetings to be held without noticing the location of the board members, thus allowing remote virtual meetings, is still moving through the legislative process, and the department's Division of Legislative Affairs is working with stakeholders and providing updates to the boards and bureaus on the status of the bill. Next, I would like to share an update related to military spouses and domestic partners temporary licensure. DCA has worked to implement AB 107 Salis 2021 effective July 1st, 2023. DCA boards and bureaus, unless otherwise exempt, are required to grant temporary licensure to the spouse or domestic partner of an active duty military member stationed in California. If the spouse or domestic partner holds a license in another state with the same scope of practice as the profession in California, which they would like to practice, DCA's Office of Information Services and Communications Division has been working to support the implementation. All boards and bureaus were recently provided an outreach toolkit to help share the message of this new benefit to military spouses. In addition, DCA has also updated its military resources webpage to reflect this new benefit. Moving on to the Enlightened Enforcement Project. The department is continuing work on its Enlightened Enforcement Project that is being piloted by the Dental Board of California. The Dental Board has walked through their intake complaint processing, citation, and investigation processes. One more walkthrough session will cover the discipline and probation processes. The goal is for staff to walk through the processes with the subject matter experts so improvements and efficiencies can be found for the Dental Board, and that can be carried over to the other boards. The project also aims to learn best practices between the boards and to standardize procedures for all boards and bureaus. The final benefit will be a template for policies and procedures related to enforcement processes for all boards to utilize. Equally important is the Data Governance Project. DCA is continuing its efforts to improve its reports regarding licenses and enforcement activities. The director recently led multiple work groups meetings beginning in late April through early July with staff from each board and bureau to update the data metrics reported in DCA's annual report. The department's goal is to ensure consistency with report data in the annual report, DCA's data portal, and Board and Bureau sunset reports. Future meetings are expected in August and ongoing to help build new reports or modify existing ones to provide the new metrics for next year's annual report. DCA held a meeting on July 17th with all boards and bureaus to review guidance on how boards and bureaus can complete and report data to the department for inclusion in this year's upcoming annual report. The project will likely be completed at the beginning of 2024. Next, I'll share information related to press release translations. To further the department's efforts to reach the Californians we serve, DCA will request the boards and bureaus translate any press releases they issue into Spanish. California's top non-English language spoken is Spanish, and establishing a standard of translating releases into both English and Spanish will enhance the reach of information released. In addition, boards and bureaus are also encouraged to evaluate any additional languages outside of Spanish that may serve their audiences. For additional information on press release translations, please contact DCA's Board and Bureau Relations. Next, I have a board member onboarding reminder related to the oath of office. Board members who have been appointed and reappointed cannot begin their service or perform any official functions without first taking the oath of office. Unless otherwise provided, the oath may be taken before any officer authorized to administer oaths. Board members should contact their executive officer to arrange taking the oath of office. All board members will be required to complete the documents listed on the board member appointment checklist, or HR 5, and return them to the Office of Human Resources no less than 30 days after their appointment or reappointment. Duties cannot be assumed and appointments cannot be processed until documents are received and are accurately completed. Incomplete packets may delay per diem payments and travel reimbursements due to the member. Moving on to required board member training. There are 2 DCA-wide mandatory trainings for 2023. This includes sexual harassment prevention training and information security awareness. All DCA employees and appointees, including board and advisory council members, will need to complete the sexual harassment prevention training this year. Board members are required to take the 2-hour supervisory training. Board members with an assigned DCA email are required to complete the Information Security Awareness Fundamentals training. This training addresses everyone's role in protecting DCA's data and information. If available, online are required every year. Both the Sexual Harassment Prevention Training and Information Security Awareness Training are available in the department's learning management system. If board members need assistance in accessing the learning management system, please reach out to the DCA Board and Bureau Relations, or if available, your board member liaison. Next, a reminder related to board member travel. Please keep in mind that all state travel arrangements must be made through DCA's authorized travel agency, Cal Travel Store, or Concur. When traveling by air in official state business, all board members and staff must use most economical fares possible. If the flight is changed, there may be additional charges. Flight changes for personal convenience are not permitted or justified, and the traveler is responsible for any associated charges. Please contact BBR if you have any travel questions. Moving on to an update for the 2023-2024 out-of-state travel. The Attorney General recently issued a press release adding 3 new states to California's restricted travel list, with staggered effective dates in the calendar year 2023 as follows. Wyoming, travel restricted effective July 14th, 2023. Missouri, travel restricted effective August 28th, 2023. And Nebraska, travel restricted effective October 1st, 2023. If you have any questions related to out-of-state travel, please reach out to your executive officer. Finally, I would like to provide a board member orientation training reminder, also referred to as BMOT. Board members must complete BMOT within 1 year of their appointment or reappointment. On October 10th, 2023, BMOT will be offered virtually. This will be the last training offered in the 2023 calendar year, and members can register for this training via LMS. Thank you again for this opportunity to present the DCA update today, and at this time, I will hand it back to Chair Sunkes and welcome any questions from the board.
Thank you so much, Ms. Moreno. Are there any questions from board members for Ms. Moreno? Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you.
I apologize. Is there any public comment for Ms. Moreno?
This is the DCA moderator, and we are opening up the WebEx Q&A feature to facilitate public comment. If anyone would like to make a comment on the DCA report, you may raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon, or you may look for the question mark icon, click that, type the word comment, and click send. If you are a call-in user, you may press *3 to raise your hand. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to make their comment. Any comments on the DCA report? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close that feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Our next agenda item is number 6, the report from our executive officer. Ms. Venner, what do you have for us?
Thank you, Chair Sunkeys. I'll start off my report with a review of the budget. On page 30 of the board meeting materials, you'll see the expenditure projections for fiscal month 12. That would be the close of 22-23. While it's not quite final, it's very, very, very close to it. You will see that through the continued cost savings realized by the remote meetings and remote testing, the board was able to revert just over $100,000 back to the CRB fund. The new fiscal year began July 1, so there aren't enough expenditures yet to really report on to you. Does anyone have any questions on the expenditure projections? Seeing none, let's move on to page 31, which is our overall fund condition. I have confirmed with our budget analyst that the future years include an annual transfer of $100,000 to the TRF. Going down to our months in reserve, you'll see that in budget year 26-27, we're currently projected to be under the 6 months of operating expenses. As you may or may not know or remember, the board's operating reserves can't fall below the 6 months, or we're no longer able to make transfers to the TRF. I would note that these figures are very conservative estimates, but I just wanted to flag for the board that we have coming changes potentially. Our vast majority of our revenue comes from the renewals. We're currently at $225 per year, and our statutory cap is at $250. So if we want to make that change, it is a regulatory change, and it just takes some time to do the studies necessary to fiscally support that. So I would propose to the board that at the next board meeting, I start some of the background work to put before you so you can see what increasing that to 250 would look like for our overall budget. Are there any questions on the fund condition? Seeing none, I'm going to pass it over to Ms. Bruning to update you on the transcript reimbursement fund.
Good morning, board. I can report out that for the close of fiscal year 2022-23, the board had paid out over $120,000 for pro bono cases and over $57,000 for pro per cases. As a reminder, the pro pers do get provisionally approved, the majority of them before an invoice comes in. So we do have pending invoices out there that have been pre-approved, that we're still waiting for, that may have been approved during the last fiscal year, but will not get billed to us until this fiscal year. Does anybody have any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Bruning, for all of your hard work on the TRF and as your training duties, I guess I'm going to throw in there. For the board, Paula has been working on training our newest staff member, Elena Zelnick Padilla, on processing applications for the TRF. And while training demands a lot of time, it is with an eye toward lessening her workload later on. Moving on to the enforcement statistics, you'll see the final statistics for our last fiscal year. They begin on page 33 and go through page 36. You'll see that our enforcement analyst has broken the data out by licensees and by firms. So that's why you're seeing two sets of data for this board meeting. And we have no new trends on the types or the number of complaints to report. Does anyone have any questions on the enforcement statistics? Seeing none, I will move on to the license exam, and those statistics begin on page 38 of the board agenda packet, and that's our skills portion. I have some good news to share on the number of candidates taking the exam. So we did complete an exam cycle in July, and I have statistics hot off the press. We had 103 candidates take the skills exam that was open from July 5 through July 26. Of that number, 47 were first timers. That's almost double from the March exam. The results of the test were mailed out on Wednesday, so I can go ahead and share pass rates with you. We had an overall pass rate this time of 38.8%, with a first-time pass rate of 63.8%. As a subset of those statistics, we had 16 voice writers take the exam, of which 15 were first-timers. 11 passed, resulting in an overall pass rate of 68.7% and a first-time pass rate of 73.3%. So we have really good news on that trend. As I pointed out at the last meeting, we are still seeing people who wait to schedule their exam to the last day of the testing cycle. I'm just going to remind candidates again that you need to schedule 72 hours in advance in order to secure a proctor. So if you wait until the very end and you run into a technical difficulty that would allow for a retest, there's no time left in the testing cycle to schedule that proctor. So then you're forced to wait to the next testing cycle. So we really encourage people to not wait to the last few days. Also, on a down note, we have had a couple of instances of people who are caught cheating. And I just want to remind everyone that if you're caught cheating, it's an automatic failure and nothing is graded. Does anybody have any questions specific to the skills portion of the exam?
Just want to express my just excitement and just encouragement to see these results already coming in the short time that we've been licensing voice writers, and appreciate the work that has gone in from the staff in particular to make this happen, and appreciate the quick turnaround of Yvonne in getting those numbers for us. I would love to see going forward if it's possible to have that breakdown in our materials too, just so we can see the progress over time. Because I think that this progress deserves to kind of have that trend be seen.
That's easy enough to add, so I'll make a note that you'll want that, and we'll put that in there. If there are, oh, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to echo those comments. It is really encouraging to see a turnaround. The shortage of court reporters and people coming into the field has been a huge problem, and this is really encouraging and just kind of a confirmation of the importance of the work that's gone on in this board. And I know there was a lot of work going into getting the voice writers licensed. So thank you, and thank you, staff. And I think that's a great idea to have those statistics spelled out. Thanks.
I want to echo the previous comments from the other board members. And also, I just have a question. I know I could do the math, but I will ask, what was the overall number of people who passed? I saw, maybe you said it and I missed it. Total number of applications, 103, overall pass rate, 38.8. So overall number of that passed? Do you have that number? Or-
I just have the percentage.
Got it. I could do the math.
Sorry.
Thank you. No worries. No worries. Thank you. And thank you, staff.
Moving on to the written portions of the exam, that the results start on page 40 and run through page 43. Again, nothing really new to report on trends. On the written portions, does anyone have any questions? The other thing if there's no other questions with the exam, I would report out that the latest occupational analysis has been completed. The validation report was posted to our website this week. And OPES is working with the subject matter experts to review the items in the test bank for questions that are steno-specific so that they can update or remove them. They either will remove them if there's no way to include the voice writing if they're for some reason, but otherwise they'll be updating that so the test bank will be current. And then the final portion of my report is on our technology modernization efforts. The contract with the developers began July 1st of 2023, and the clock ticks. We have 1 year. Staff meets daily, yes, daily, with the development team to report progress and solve impediments. We also meet twice a week to see demos of the work in progress. And as a reminder, in addition to moving the online enforcement complaint to the new system, the overall goal is to work to get the board's processes completely off the CAS and ATS legacy systems. Overall, the project is currently on schedule, under budget, and is matching the defined scope. And I cannot thank staff enough for their work on this huge project. Their commitment to the project is obvious as they work to meet the TMP requirements in addition to their existing duties. You'd think I'd be hearing more complaints, but apparently no one has time for that. Seriously, thank you all to staff for all the hard work. Are there any questions on the technology modernization portion?
As a former business analyst myself, who has been the consultant who has been the pain for many state workers having to deal with tech modernization, I'm so appreciative of all of the work that the staff has put in to make this happen, and so excited to see what we'll be able to do once this is accomplished. And I just want to again highlight just the expertise and how wonderful the board has been, or excuse me, the staff has been, because so much of that work can really only happen with a team on staff who is knowledgeable about rules, about the current functions of the business. And so that really can only happen with a team that is functioning well already, that can then, put that all into the system. And so again, just really looking forward to what we can do with the tech modernization once it's there, and looking forward to adding lots of data asks to it.
I don't know if you want to see if the public has any questions. Otherwise, that would conclude my report.
Thank you for the update. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to comment on the executive officer report?
This is the DCA moderator. And we've opened up the WebEx features to facilitate public comment. If you'd like to make a comment on the executive officer's report, you may raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon. You may click on the question mark icon, type the word comment in that text box and click send. Or if you are a call-in user, you may press *3 to raise your hand. We do have a comment from Anna Costa. Anna, I'm going to send you a request to unmute your microphone so you may make your comment. There you go. You're unmuted, Anna.
I asked the same question. Good morning, everybody. Anna Costa, West Valley College faculty. This was great news, Yvonne. Thank you so much for the statistics on the skills exam. And my question was, I believe what Robin asked, if you state the number, total number of who passed, but you already answered it. You only have the percentage, correct?
I did the quick calculation and it's 40.
Okay, I had 30.
I can do low level math.
Yeah, I did it too, 39 point something. I didn't think that I was going to be called up. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And our next request for comment comes from someone logged into WebEx as Carolyn Dasher. Carolyn, I'm sending you a request and you mute your microphone so you may make your comment. And you're unmuted.
Hi, thank you. First, I want to say goodbye to Davina. Thank you to her and hello to the new board member. But my big comment was I'm so happy to see the stats so large, and I want to thank all the different reporters that are working really hard to get students and webinars and get the information out there. And just a big kudos to those people. They know who they are. Thank you, everybody.
And this is the moderator. I do not see any further requests for comment. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
That will take us to our next agenda item, number 7, legislation. Ms. Fenner, would you like to present this agenda item for us?
Thank you, Chair Sunkeys. Beginning on page 44 of the board packet, you'll find a list of the bills that we are tracking in the current legislative cycle. The first bills that we're tracking are SB 21 and 22 by Senator Umberg. As you can see on pages 44 through 46, there are several provisions allowing for remote reporting that are sunsetting. The bill would extend the provisions until January 2028. The remote appearance applies to parties, not the court reporter, just so that we're clear on that. Is there any board member that would like to discuss this, either of those two bills? Seeing none, moving on to 7.3, which is SB 372 by Senator Menjivar. Since the board book was printed, it has moved out of the Appropriations Committee and is on the floor. This bill would require a board to replace a licensee's former name or gender on their license and on any board-operated website upon request. When the licensee's name or gender has been changed, or upon the licensee's participation in the Safe at Home Address Confidentiality Program. And we would need documentation to support that request to make it exempt from public disclosure. The bill would prohibit the board from publishing information relating to the licensee's former name or gender online, but instead would require the board to post language directing the public to inquire with the board for further information. For specified licensees, the board would be prohibited from posting enforcement records online, but would be required to post an online statement stating that the individual was previously subject to an enforcement action and directing the public to contact the board as prescribed. The bill would provide that all records related to a request to update an individual's license under these provisions are confidential and not subject to public inspection or disclosure. The bill would also require the board, if requested by the licensee, to reissue any license created by the board and conferred upon the licensee. Are there any comments or discussion for this bill?
I should say Board Member Tagade.
Oh, sure. Thank you, Chair. So we had an extensive discussion about this bill at our previous board meeting. I don't believe we took a position previously due to some concerns about implementation, although I think that the board largely understood what the author was the intent that the author had about these important issues that she was trying to undertake. And I think primarily what the board's concerns were about was, our charge, which is consumer protection. But I think that the author has worked very hard to address those concerns over the legislative process. And the changes that the author has made to the bill have brought it in line with the process that the state bar uses at this point. In looking over the updated language that the bill has now, there's some specific language around whether the individual was previously subject to enforcement action that has been added to the bill language, rather than just saying to reach out to the board, that I think provides an adequate layer of protection. The individual would still be attached to their license number. And so with that, I think that the protection to transgender individuals, to people who are survivors or suffering from domestic violence is great as well. And so I would hope that at the appropriate time, we can support the measure.
Thank you.
A motion? Motion.
I'll make the motion when appropriate. Yeah. Okay, I'll make the motion.
So we have a motion to support SB 372. Is there a second?
I second.
Is there any discussion from board members?
I'd like to thank.
Board Member Minaya.
Board Member, I'd like to thank bringing this motion to a vote. I think the intent is valid. I just want to make sure. I'm not too familiar with the additional language that was added about posting prior enforcement actions. In theory, I'd like to support this and just want to make a note that I do not have not reviewed the additional language in detail. My concern is just to make sure the same consumer protection measures apply across the board, and that the same information is available online to the consumers. So just want to make a note that I'm not familiar with the language itself, but hoping that that is stated in the bill.
Any further discussion from board members? We've got a motion by Board Member Tagade and a second by Board Member Dodge Nam to support SB 372. Are there any comments from the public?
This is the DCA moderator, and we've opened up the WebEx public comment feature. If you'd like to make a comment on the motion on SB 372, you may look for the hand icon and click that to raise your hand. You can look for the question icon, click that, type the word comment and click send, or if you're a call-in user, you can press *3 to raise your hand. Each speaker will have 3 minutes with a 30-second warning. Are there any comments on the motion? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
This is legal, if I may. I did want to make a note on Member Mayan's comment. At this time, the edits seem to provide, again, I can be overruled by anything the legislature does or interprets, but seems to provide that those that have changed their name will have an indication to contact the board if there's any further enforcement action. However, enforcement actions for all other members will continue to be posted as public documents on the record.
Thank you for that clarification, Ms. Jeffrey. Any further discussion from board members? Ms. Bruning, would you please call the roll?
Thank you, Ms. Brewer.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Dodge now.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Manayan.
Aye.
Thank you, Ms. Tagate.
Aye.
Thank you, Ms. Sunkis.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Moving on to SB 544 by Senator Laird. It's the Bagley-Keene Open Meetings Act bill that is seeking a way for boards to continue to meet remotely while remaining fully open and transparent to the public. The most current language would require a majority of the members of the state body to be physically present in the same location for at least 1/2 of the meetings of that group. Board want to discuss?
Yes.
Board Member Manayan?
I think there's, this was previously discussed about the cost savings of certain smaller boards who do not have as, do not meet as many times in a year and don't have as big of a budget to continue to be able to have virtual meetings as needed. Of course, the board's budget dictates that, but I would like to perhaps request staff to see if there are any other DCA boards that are advocating on behalf of the flexibility for certain smaller boards to continue having remote meetings as needed, and to perhaps jump on their sort of say bandwagon and just express support for their efforts. I think the cost savings is pretty significant. That can be better allocated to programs like TRF and other efforts of the board.
Yeah. Was that I heard direction to staff. That wasn't, was that not necessarily a motion in support of the bill, or did?
I understood it as feedback for the author, that you want me to gather the information from the other small boards, see if they've taken any position or have the same concerns.
Correct.
And then pass that information on to the author's office.
Correct.
Thank you. Any other comments from the board? Board Member Tagate?
Sure. You know, I know this particular piece of legislation has gone through several iterations as it's moved through the legislative process. At this stage, it seems, you know, we are close to the end of the legislative session, and so it is unlikely to be amended further at this particular stage. So I imagine that for the time being, this will likely be the extent to the flexibility that will be allowed for boards. And so given that, I would actually like to encourage the board to take up a support position because, you know, given the timing, it is unlikely that we will be given another opportunity to have to be given flexibility until this time next year. So without taking up this bill, it's possible we'll be stuck with the current Bagley-Keene laws until next year.
I believe I heard a motion by Board Member Tagade in support that the board should take a position in support of SB 544.
I will make the motion, Ken. Thank you.
Second.
So we have a motion by Board Member Tagade and a second by Board Member Brewer to take a position in support of SB 544. Any other comment by the board? Could we open it up to public comment? Any comment from the public on this motion?
Should we wait to take public comment at the end of going through all? Oh, is there another bill we want to take a motion on, or, okay, or should we just,
I think we're taking them one at a time.
got it?
So this is the DCA moderator. If anyone would like to make a comment on the Bagley-Keene bill and the motion, you may look for the question mark icon, click that, type the word comment and click send. You may look for the hand icon and click that to raise your hand. And our call-in users may press *3 to raise their hand. Each speaker will have 3 minutes with a 30-second warning. Are there any comments? I do not see any requests for comment at this time. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Ms. Bruning, would you please call for the vote?
Thank you, Ms. Brewer.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Dodgenham.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Manayan.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Tagade.
Aye.
Thank you, Ms. Sunkis. Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you.
The final bill that we're actively following is, well, I skipped one, sorry. Let me continue on, please, with SB 662. This is authored by Senator Rubio, and the bill in its current form would require reciprocity with the RPR after evaluation with OPES. For the newer board members, the board conducted that evaluation with the help of OPES in 2021. Additionally, the bill would expand the ability of courts to use electronic recording instead of court reporters. This is a 2-year bill that did not make it out of its house of origin, and it has until January 31st of 2024 to pass out of the Senate in order to continue its progress. Yeah, are there any questions?
Appears not.
Okay. And then the final bill then is SB 802 by Senator Roth. That likewise has to move through the Senate by the end of January in order to move forward. I have 2 other items that came out since the board materials were printed. SB 143 has gone into print. Included in the trailer bill language is a reinstatement of the Bagley-Keene flexibilities that ended in July, and it extends the flexibilities until December 31st of this year. So we do have the ability to meet remotely as we have in the past through the end of the year. Also, Section 1 of the trailer bill includes the Department of Consumer Affairs proposed language regarding Public Law 117-333, which is the portability of professional licenses of service members and their spouses. That's a federal law that went into effect January 5th of 2023, and it allows service members and their spouses to use their professional licenses when they relocate due to military orders. That means they could come into California with an existing license and practice without having to take our test. Does anyone have any questions?
I am seeing none
Maybe public comment
on the whole thing.
on
Are you
anything
done?
that's out there?
You're done.
I'm done. That was,
That concludes your,
that
okay.
concludes my
Okay.
report. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Is there any public comment on the legislative report by Ms. Fenner?
This is the DCA moderator. If anyone would like to make a comment on the report, you may look for the hand icon, click that to raise your hand. You may look for the question mark icon, click that, type the word comment and click send. And our call-in users may press *3 to raise their hand. Each speaker will have 3 minutes with a 30-second warning. Any comment on the legislative report? We do have a raised hand from Carolyn Dasher. And Carolyn, I will send you a request to unmute your microphone. You're unmuted.
Thank you so much. I do have a comment on SB 662, and as our executive director stated, that does expand the use of electronic recording, and we are hoping that we will be able to kill that bill. So I would suggest if there is language favorable to the board, that perhaps the board look into another avenue for that language in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dasher.
And our next request for comment comes from someone logged into WebEx as Mary Pierce. Mary, I'll send you a request to unmute and you'll have 3 minutes. You're unmuted.
Mary Pierce, I am co-leg chair for CalDRA, although this comment I'm about to make is of my own opinion only. As far as the RPR reciprocity, I would prefer that the original proposal was for provisional licenses and give them 3 years to pass the California state exam. If we're going to continue to see these upticks in numbers and people passing the test, certainly the schools are getting a lot more students, and I would like them to, in the long run, have to be licensed in California. We can always revisit extending provisional licenses if we don't get enough reporters. But I would like the California reporters to have the first shot at California work.
Thank you, Ms. Pierce.
And this is the moderator. I do not see any further requests for comment at this time. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
If I could just add, Chair Sunkeys, for clarification for Ms. Pierce, the provisional licensing language was all amended out of 662. And to Ms. Dasher's comment, the language on the OPS and looking at the reciprocity with the RPR was not initiated by the board. So that, I just wanted to be clear because it made it sound like it was our language and it was not.
Thank you for that clarification. Any other comments from the board on legislation? Then I would suggest we take a 15-minute break at this point before we get into agenda item 8. Welcome back. We will continue on with agenda item 8.1. Our regulations attorney, Mr. Stephen Vong, will update us on the status of the voice writer curriculum regulations package. Mr. Vaughn?
Good morning, thank you. Directing your attention to page 48 on the board agenda packet, I'll just have a quick update for 8.1, Title 16, Section 2403, 2411, and 2414. And this package is called voice writing. These regulations concern scope of practice of court reporters, criteria for recognition of court reporting schools, and definitions. Changes are necessary because Assembly Bill AB 156 from 2022 required the board to allow for the licensure of voice writers as certified court reporters in California. The anticipated impact is licensing of voice writers, which will alleviate pressure on courts because demand for shorthand reporters continues to outgrow supply. Since the board's approval, staff has made some technical non-substantive changes, and the proposed language is now pending publication with the Office of Administrative Law, OAL, to be published on September 8th, 2023. The board will be sending out a notice, and regulation materials will also be available on the website on that day, and then there will be a 45-day comment period. I'll leave it to Executive Officer Fenner or Regulations Manager Betsy Figuera if they have any additional updates.
Thank you. This item is informational only, and there will be public comment available once the package is filed with the Office of Administrative Law. But is there any member of the public who wishes to comment on the status?
This is the WebEx moderator, and if there are comments on the status of this, my apologies for the slide. There we go. You may look for the hand icon and click that to raise your hand. You may look for the question mark icon, click that, type the word comment and click send. And if you are a call-in user, you may press *3 to raise your hand. Are there any comments on the proposed regulation? And I see no requests for comment at this time. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
The next portion of our agenda is 8.2. Mr. Vong, will you present this item for the board's consideration, please?
Yes, thanks. So this concerns Title 16, Sections 2420, 2422, and 2473, examination results and transcript format discussion rulemaking package. What the regulation currently does in Section 2420 is state the exam requirements for court reporters, which is 3 parts, how a passing grade is determined, and the duration conditional credit is granted for an examination that has been passed. 2422 concerns inspection of an exam, which allows permission for examinees to inspect their examination transcripts and a copy of the board's official transcripts upon written request, as well as the ability of examinees to request reconsideration of exam results. 2473 concerns minimum transcript format standards with which shorthand reporters must comply. Changes are being made being proposed because the board has transitioned from an in-person dictation exam to online exams. And by statute, we have to uphold concerns of exam security. And we are also adding results notification from one section from 2422 to 2420, which is a simple relocation and rephrasing. And we are proposing to repeal 2422 altogether. Previously, the board voted to repeal subsection B, and now we are proposing to relocate Section A and repeal Section C so that there will no longer be a reconsideration process, but applicants will still have the chance to retake the exam on the next cycle. And this package also is amending CCR Section 2473 to establish a new minimum transcript format standard that the text be offered in a full text search capable electronic format if requested. The anticipated impact of this is that it will help consolidate exam-related information under one regulation, and the repeal of 2422 will help ensure proper exam security for the current online format of the exam, and it will also update format standards. The proposed motion language is missing some information, and Ms. Fenner will state the complete necessary motion language for the board.
The motion should be that the board rescind prior motions approved November 20, 2020 and January 26th of 2022 relating to sections 2422 and 2473 of the California Code of Regulations, Title 16, respectively, and approve the newly proposed regulatory text for sections 2420, 2422, and 2473. Also direct staff to submit the text and other required documents to the Director of the Department of Consumer Affairs and the Business Consumer Services and Housing Agency for review. And if no adverse comments are received, authorize the executive officer to take all steps necessary to initiate the rulemaking process, make any non-substantive changes to the package, and set the matter for a hearing if requested. If no adverse comments are received during the 45-day comment period and no hearing is requested,
authorize the executive officer to take all steps necessary to complete the rulemaking process and adopt the proposed regulations at section 2420, 2422, and 2473 as noticed.
Thank you. Do any board members wish to comment or offer? Move the motion. Board Member Manayan.
I'll move for the motion to adopt as suggested by Ms. Fenner.
Is there a second?
Second.
So we have a motion by Board Member Manayan and a second by Ms. Brewer to adopt the motion that Ms. Fenner just recited. Is there any further discussion by the board? Is there any public comment?
This is the moderator. If anyone has any comment on the motion, you may look for the hand icon and click that to raise your hand. You may look for the question mark icon, click that, type the word comment in the text box and click send. Or if you are a call-in user, you may press *3 to raise your hand. Any comments on the motion? I do not see any requests for comment at this time. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Ms. Bruning, would you please call the roll?
Thank you, Ms. Brewer.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Dodge Nam.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Manayan.
Aye.
Thank you, Ms. Tagare.
Aye.
Thank you, Ms. Sunkis.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Now we will move on to agenda item number 9, Sunset Review. We will be reviewing the draft Sunset Report. Ms. Fenner, would you like to give us the background for this item, please?
As you will remember, at the March meeting, we discussed the Sunset Review Report. Staff has prepared the draft for the board's consideration, and it's before you now just to let me know of any edits you'd like to make. At the end, we would need a motion to direct staff to make the amendments and offer it to the legislature by the deadline, which is January 4th, 2024. With the changes in the trailer bill, if there are substantive changes that require a major rewrite, we can do a remote meeting once the trailer bill is signed, just to throw that out there for the board's consideration. I think
Thank
the
you.
easiest way to go through it is just page by page. If anybody wants to just shout out their first change.
Board Member Brewer.
I have a change on our booklet, page 56. The first paragraph, the third line from the bottom, towards the end of that line, it says real-time translation for the hard of hearing. I would suggest adding deaf and hard of hearing because they're two different communities. And personally, I would make it a capital D, which is for the deaf world.
I'm sorry, Ms. Brewer. Where could you redirect me?
Yes. On page 56 of our board book, the first paragraph at the top,
Got it.
fourth line down, second half of that line and the end of the line.
And your change?
My change is to add capital D deaf and before the term hard of hearing, the hyphenated hard of hearing. And then I guess it would be, I don't know, do we want to make it communities deaf and hard of, I think it's generally known as the deaf and hard of hearing community.
Any other comments or changes?
Well, if we're ready to go on to the next page.
I believe we are.
Okay. So on our booklet, page 57, 3 of 49, of the Sunset Review, the bottom paragraph, this is just a usage suggested change. The board itself comprises 5 members instead of is comprised of. The board itself comprises 5 members. That's generally the best use of comprises. I have more. I can keep going unless somebody else wants to jump in. Page 62, this is just my bio. I'm sure it was pulled off the website. And I don't, probably nobody reads this, but some of this doesn't read correctly. You know what, we can leave it at that. Part's not important. Let's go to page 65 of our booklet. 1, 2, 3. Under number 4, describe any major studies. Second paragraph. It says at the end of the second line, this test is equivalent in speed to the RPR, but is specific to voice writers. My understanding is that steno writers can also take and pass the CVR. So I don't know if we want to consider changing that language.
I believe NVRA does test and certify machine writers, but it's called something else.
It's called something else. Okay, great.
CVR is, my understanding, is specific to voice writers.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for that, that information. And then page 66. Under number 7, the first line, per our fund condition report prepared. It should be delete the ED at the end of report.
Before you go on to the next one, and after that one is, did you get that?
Yes,
Okay.
got it.
You brought up a good point. I don't know if it would be appropriate because NVRA tests both machine and steno. I don't know if we've even discussed NVRA's entry-level exam. I'm not sure what it's called, the initials, the acronym. But should that be part of this report?
I did make a note to go back and research and see and include both if they are the same.
Thank you. Way ahead of me, as usual. Board Member Brewer.
Okay. Okay, so we did reported. Okay, page 67, 13 of 49. Second to the last paragraph. At the end of that paragraph, it reads historical data to project out costs. I would just delete out to project costs. Suggested change. Delete out. Oh, and then I had on page 68, under item 12, about 2/3 down the page, the second line of the second to last paragraph of the page says by law, a minimum of $300,000 of the board's total revenue must go to the TRF each July 1. I think that probably needs to be updated. Because I believe we can do it at $100,000 increments now.
You are correct. There is legislative language that was changed to allow us to do it 100 at a time. Good catch.
Okay. And then 69, I've got a question about this fee schedule and revenue. The 1, 2, 3, fourth item down, initial license. What I'm sorry if I'm ignorant on this. Half CSR. What's this? What is that? What's?
Go ahead.
When a license is initially issued, if there's less than 6 months remaining until their birth month, we charge them half the fee, so it'd be $112.50 currently.
Thank you. Great. Okay, moving on. Page 77. Oh, this is just a question related to testing voice writers. I know NVRA does an in-person test, and when they do that, they test for audibility. Now, we're testing remotely, and I don't think we're doing anything to test for audibility. And this just brought this to mind for me, if it's ever something that we need to consider.
You are correct that we are testing them remotely. And so we are relying upon their qualifying method to test the audibility. So if they come through the schools, we're relying on the schools to test the audibility. If they're coming through the CVR, then we're relying on NVRA to do, because that is in person, to do the audibility.
Terrific. That's great.
And I will just add to that comment that that was the procedure adopted in by the task force that looked at this issue, the curriculum following the passage of the legislation last fall.
Okay, fantastic. Good. Sorry, I missed that. Okay, page 81, the last paragraph, second to the last line, which provides the reporter less time reporter to work. You'd need to delete that second reporter. Oh, and I have another one up higher on the page. You never knew you were going to get like 5 proofreaders.
I will say this has not been proofread, so I appreciate this.
Yeah, no, I know. This is not meant as a criticism. It's just meant to help catch things.
Want the best work product to be presented, definitely.
Right. So, okay, on that same page, 81, up 3 paragraphs, the paragraph starting, the board's performance measures are published. In the 4th line, it says complaint receipt and completion of the investigation. I think that if you read the sentence, that "and" should be a T-O. Okay, moving on. Sorry to be the nitpicky person. Okay, page 85. Item 35, the question. Okay, so this is the question, but it's got a typo. Compliance should be complaint. I don't know if that was a copy and paste.
We don't get to change the form.
Okay. So I just didn't know if it was a copy and paste or if it was typed in. That's why I brought it up.
I'll double check.
I apologize. Can we go back to page 80? I did have one piece I was hoping to address under item number 29 for school approvals. I was wondering if it might be worth indicating under how many schools are approved, if it would be worth explaining the online schools that are available, that there are a number of online programs that are available that students may qualify through the RPR or to take the California license exam and so forth. Just in the interest of clarifying the routes that are available to students.
Up to the board. I'm happy to include that.
And I'm not, I'm just questioning, I'm just rereading the question because and maybe, let me just clarify what you're, if I understand what you're asking, and that is currently to qualify to sit for the CSR, a test candidate would qualify by either through coming from one of the recognized schools or having the national certification, either RPR or CVR. And some of this, what we're seeing is that some of the test candidates perhaps go to a recognized school, but qualify for the test. And I think this is particularly with the voice writing, qualify for the test by taking the CVR. So the school doesn't get credit. Is that the point that you want to make?
I took it as she wants to just inform the legislature that these 8 schools aren't the only avenue to educate court reporters. They're in the
Yes,
city.
yes, that's correct, Ms. Fenner. I think what I'd like to clarify is that I think we should be clarifying that we do not have a bottleneck in terms of school placements. And so however we need to make that clear. I'm
As-
happy to direct staff to draft those comments.
And we have 2 other comments. I saw Board Member Dodge Nam and then Board Member Manayan when he's finished.
I think I understand the intent of it, but I'm wondering if the section on page 77, that in section 23, but down near the bottom third of the page, applicants must qualify to sit for the examination through one of 3 methods. If this might be the right area, if this is sufficient, or if this area can be beefed up. My concern is on the school approvals. It does seem to be very specific to the schools that we are recommending and approving.
And Board Member Manayan, your comment?
Same point as Board Member Dodge. And I understand Board Member Tagada's recommendation as well. The question is specifically addressing schools approved by the board. But I think Board Member Tagada was suggesting to provide additional clarification beyond the scope of the question as informational for the board. So either way, however staff chooses to best provide that clarification, whether it's in this question or as suggested by Board Member Dodge.
Thank you. I think that's a good point.
Does the board have a preference on where it goes?
I have a suggestion. If it meets your approval, you could say something like, in addition to available online schools, there.
And I'm sorry, where?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I think that's
Yes,
the
correct.
specific-
That
yeah.
was what was specifically asked. Under 29, where Ms. Tagada raised the issue, you could say something like, in addition to online schools, there are 8 schools offering court reporters in the state of California that are approved by the board.
I don't think I would do that because the question is very specific on how many are approved by the board.
Okay.
So I want to start with the direct information from that. But I don't have any problem with an additional paragraph saying, just for clarity, for background, there are many, many schools available and there are no issues with candidates finding training programs.
I trust that sounds like a great, personally, that sounds like a great way to handle it. And I trust that that point will be included and in the appropriate spot in the report. Further comments?
Yes, I would agree that I'm comfortable with moving forward that way. Thank you.
Okay.
Agreed.
Ms. Brewer, did you,
Agreed. I think that's a good solution.
and did you have more?
I'm sorry.
I'm
yes, I
kind
have
of
more.
assuming you have more.
Yes, Ms. Finicky has more. Okay, page 86.
I didn't call you Ms. Finicky, but.
No, everyone's being very gracious. Page 86, number 37, the paragraph right below C. I have noted to delete the overall percentage. The sentence would then read, if the 7 defaults are included, the percentage is 71. The overall percentage wording is superfluous. Okay, and then if we go to,
Hold on.
interrupt me if,
So you don't want to include the overall percentage?
well, if the 7 defaults are included, the overall, something's wrong if we leave it in. Included the overall percentage, the percentage is 71.
So I think that we weren't sure exactly what statistic they were looking for. So we did
Okay.
both. If they want just the cases that settled of the accusations, that results in the 29%. However, of a larger subset, we did have some default. And then that brings us the percentage to 71. So I think the way the statistics are presented, it gives them a more full picture.
I'll leave it to you to state it in the clearest method for what the intent is, but to my reading, it's superfluous.
Would it make sense to delete the comma after included and use the word in?
Yes, that's what. Okay, Board Member Manayan had a better suggestion, and that was to delete the words percentage the. So then it would just be, if the 7 defaults are included, the overall percentage is 71.
Got it.
That's clearer. Thank you.
Before we move from page 86, can I raise on item number 39? Could we add a reference to the statutory change, adding title protection as well as an accomplishment that the board has undertaken?
That was it.
Actually, and I would also like to add to that, that firm registration as an effort to kind of address transparency and enforcement issues.
Page 86.
Do you have that?
Got it. Thank you. Sorry.
Good call.
Okay, moving on, page 88. Okay, nope, that's note to myself. Page 89. Item question 52, the 4th line down. I'll just read the part of it. Online for a couple years should be couple of years. Add the word of. Page 90, the bottom of section 6, the last line, 3rd to the last word, made should be make.
I'm making a couple of these that I've mentioned to her already.
We're the court reporters.
It's the court reporter. I said, I can't help it. It's my job.
We can't help it. Page 91, final paragraph, 2nd line, court should be courts. Page 92, question 63, first line of the answer. Hang on, let me look at this. Court history has long been instead of is long been. And then the next line makes it attractive for single parents while allowing or yet allows. Makes should agree with allows, or else you want to rephrase it.
Could you just read what you would like it to say, please?
Okay, the flexible schedule of deposition work makes it attractive for single parents, yet allows them to earn enough to support their family.
Thank you.
On page, oh,
No, uh,
Go ahead.
Ms. Tagade and then Mr. Dodgenham.
thank you, Ms. Chair. On page 90, number 50, oops, lost it here. 6. Oh, excuse me, 50, actually 55 and 56. Actually, sorry, I'm sorry, 56. I'm wondering if it might be possible to add a little bit of detail because I know that Ms. Fenner and Ms. Sunkeys have attended a number of meetings. Is that where I'm sorry. Yes, 56. And conferences. And so I wonder if we might add just a touch more detail in the number of meetings, the extensiveness of the expertise that you've provided to various organizations.
Thank you. Board Member Dodgenham.
On page 93, section we just visited, question 63, that first sentence, the court reporting industry has long been welcoming to low income and minorities. Much of a question as anything, we're using the word low income here as a noun. Is that common practice, or should we be saying low income individuals? Is that a descriptor, or is that considered a noun? I just don't know best practice.
And I defer to staff.
I defer to Ms. Brewer.
Pardon me?
I would defer to our wordsmith, Ms. Brewer.
That's right.
Oh, yeah, I missed that one. The court reporting industry has long been welcoming to low income individuals or low income people.
Persons.
I was so caught up in the yet allowing.
If I may make a suggestion, I know that there's been a move to move towards like historically marginalized communities or like some language like that. And so happy to direct staff to use different language.
So
Okay.
tell me exactly what you want.
Do we want to go with historically marginalized communities?
Yes,
or
that's great.
something like that?
In place of the low income in my.
I would say both, because someone could be low income and not historically marginalized. So if you want to make that both qualification, that's fine.
Sure.
To be more inclusive.
So low income individuals, minorities, and
Rather than minorities,
Rather than- okay.
using historically marginalized communities.
In which case you could just,
You
I'm
don't need
sorry.
the word individual.
Exactly. You don't need to add individuals.
Yeah, low income and historically marginalized communities.
so I have welcoming to low income and historically marginalized community.
Oh, I guess individuals, sorry. Rather than communities.
Okay.
So instead of community, make it individuals?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, got it.
Are we back to Ms. Brewer?
I have more. I'm sorry. We had an hour for this, right? Okay, page 93. Actually, page 92, the final line, boards, the A is missing. $960,000 for the board's IT.
Oh, and I'm sorry to jump back to section 7, page, I guess it's 90 to 91, number 58.
You didn't get the last one?
I'm sorry, I can wait.
Got it at the bottom. You there? Page 92, last line. Boards is misspelled. I'm sorry, Mr. Gotti?
I wonder if we might be able to include more.
Can you start me? Can you
Oh,
start me
sure,
with the
sure, sure.
location, please? Sorry.
Section, at the top of section 7, so page 90 to 91, it's item 58. And so I'm wondering if we could add some of the recent. If we might add some of the recent numbers that we have on voice writing. Of course, they're, still going through the testing process, and we have just a few licensed, but if it's possible to get, whenever we have, recent numbers included there, I think that would go well in this section perhaps.
Even though it's a small number?
I think that given how brief the time has been, I think it would be encouraging, and especially those percentages and breaking out the upward trend, I think in particular would be good.
Can I ask you a question about that, Mr. Gotti?
Sure.
So our statistics are closing out the last fiscal year. Is it appropriate to include information that is after the start of the fiscal year that we last reported all the other stats?
I think that anywhere along where there's narrative, that we should have the very most up-to-date information.
Perfect. I just wanted to make sure what you're like with your experience in the legislature.
And typically, as long as we add an asterisk that, at the time of writing, here's where we are.
Okay, thank you.
Really appropriate.
Okay. Okay, so we got the last one on page 92, boards. So the next one is page 93. Oh, second paragraph in the answer. Second to the bottom line, the last word, issues should be issue. Continue to issue licenses.
Mhm.
Okay, so then page 94, I just had a question on issue number 2. Let's see, is that issue? No, it's issue number. It's the issue number 1 from the previous page. So I'm sure I'm the novice here. So, but it just occurred to me, do we want to include the VAT balance and any projections in our response?
We can't project because we really have no way of knowing how
Okay.
many claims we get. It is so random.
Point taken. So balance, no?
Which is also a bit of a moving target because of the provisionally approved licenses or invoices that we do.
Okay.
That also is not a firm number, and it would be by, today, what we've approved from the board, but yet there's a gap to when the warrant is actually issued from the state controller's office. So if somebody had a specific question on a specific date, we could get them that data. But I hesitate, it's not as easy as putting a number in there, I guess.
You're the one who knows. Thank you.
Excuse me, Board Member Tagade.
I apologize to keep jumping back, but on page 91, number 61, and I'm afraid, I wonder if we should wordsmith this answer a little bit. I definitely want to emphasize the need for accuracy and the lack of leeway for error in the profession, certainly. But I wonder if we should be a little more direct in responding to the low pass rates for the exam, and then addressing the kind of jumping to, the measures we have been taking to try to lower those barriers. So looking at voice writing, looking at in the future, changing the testing format, at, looking at test review, all of the various measures. I'm really emphasizing that we've been looking at ways to reduce barriers, but that I think really emphasizing that the low number of students completing, going through the schools is part of the issue. Of course, I know that's a little bit tangential to the question, but I think it's worth expressing that for that question.
I think it would be easy to add a paragraph explaining why voice writing would reduce barriers and that it can help a steno reporter with a physical disability to transition and continue working. So I think I get the intent and can add that paragraph.
Thank you.
Board Member Dodge Nam.
I noticed, I believe, a typo on page 94. The fourth paragraph, full paragraph from the bottom, the one that starts with the 3 asterisks, current board response, that's underlined. I'm wondering if that transfer amount is missing a 0. Should that be $100,000?
Yes.
Excellent catch.
Get my honorary proofreader's license.
Thank you. Next.
Okay, next. Okay. Page 95, the first current board response, which is the 4th paragraph. The board has been, I just have a note to myself here okay, this is what board member Tagada already mentioned. Do we want to update this? And we've got our answer. Okay, so going down 2 paragraphs, the paragraph starting, the board is working on submission. Second to the last line, right in the center, I believe changes should be changed.
I missed where you were on that.
Excuse me?
Page 95.
Right. So I saw the first you were talking about the first paragraph, the first current board response.
The paragraph right above issue number 3.
Okay.
Second to last line, center of the line.
Got it.
Changes should be changed. Thank you.
Got it. Thank you. And did you get the first, to update that? The board has issued 5 licenses to voice writers to date. That will be updated. She's suggesting that should be updated. I agree with that.
At the time of submission.
Right, correct. Yes. Okay.
Okay. Let me see what I have here. The next thing I have, I think, is page 100. If you go just below halfway where the current board response with the 3 asterisks, I would suggest inserting the word to TO before licensees at the end of the sentence. The board acts as a valuable conduit for information to licensees.
Got it.
Okay, and then, okay, I need to take a look at this issue number 2. Page 101. Okay, that's page 101. Okay, so still on page 100. Final paragraph. court reporting may be comparatively small board. I think we should have it be the court reporters board. Maybe, or might be, or is. I'll leave that to you. And then I was wondering if we want to include, you have to forgive me, I made all these copious notes and then I haven't reread them before coming here, which I had intended to do, but ran out of time. Do we want to cover the point of ensuring integrity of transcripts and protecting the consumer from incompetent providers? Just a note to myself.
Would you repeat that one? I apologize.
Yes. Do we want to add the point? This is under this current board response to issue number 9. Do we want to add something that the board ensures the integrity of transcripts and protects the consumer from incompetent providers?
On page 100?
Page 100.
So in the last paragraph where it talks about appeal rights and due process, are you wanting to accentuate?
Small board, but with the appeals and due process rights.
Or perhaps add a new paragraph?
I'm sorry that I'm not more organized with this thought. I'm pretty much just reading a note that I made to myself about, do we want to consider including this point? So yeah, I'd recommend that staff consider that.
Okay.
Thank you.
I guess
I have my advisor here who gives me little helping tips.
And I think the issue, if you could restate what you would like them to consider adding.
Certainly, yes. So I would like you to consider adding,
Well,
not necessarily, yes.
it's your report. I just want to be clear. So that's why, are you directing me to add?
Yes,
Okay, ready.
that the board ensures the integrity of transcripts and protects the consumers from incompetent providers, consumer or consumers.
The board ensures integrity of transcripts and
Protects the consumer or consumers from incompetent providers.
got it.
Okay, and then I have something here. Add. Oh, I'm just going to read this out loud. Once again, I apologize for not having had time to reread my notes before starting. The lives and financial well-being of litigants depend on the competence and integrity of court reporters. The board makes it possible for consumers of the court system to have confidence they can rely on the record produced by licensees.
Where are you, Ms. Brewer?
At the end. This would be an addition at the end of the board's response to request number 2. So this would be at the end of page 100 and before section 11.
Would you please repeat that?
I'm
I
sorry.
will.
Let me clarify. After the part that you just added, this is another addition.
Yes,
Okay, ready.
I recommend that you add the lives and financial well-being of litigants depend on the competence and integrity of court reporters.
Okay, I don't
And
have
then
my machine.
I'm sorry,
The lives and financial well-being.
of litigants depend on the competence and integrity of court reporters, period. The board makes it possible for consumers of the court system to have confidence that they can rely on the record produced by licensees.
Do we want to say legal system
Sure.
since it's,
I think that's
I
probably
mean,
better.
ultimately it would be
Legal
an
system.
appellate court, but
Rely on the
legal system?
No, before that, I missed the end of what you said, I'm sorry. That they can rely on the record.
The board makes it possible for consumers of the, and we're discussing whether it should be court system or legal system, to have confidence that they can rely on the record produced by licensees. Oh. Better. Sorry, didn't mean to make it a shorthand task. Okay, so. Page 101, issue 2. Okay, so page 101, issue number 1, 1, 2, 3. Third paragraph down, the paragraph that starts, actually, is this, yeah. Third paragraph down, the paragraph that starts that same feature, however, the last word, I would suggest changing happens to be is created. The AI software could possibly be doing 100% of the translation with a type of monitor approving the transcript as it is created.
Got it.
Okay, and then I have this next paragraph I have with tenor writing. This change will have a big impact on consumers who look to the court reporter instead of a court reporter, to be instead of as, the objective, unbiased person creating the record on which any appeal relies. Okay, and then when it comes to the next issue, number 2, I actually I took the liberty to rewrite the first and second paragraph. And I would have provided copies to other board members, but I was told that that's against the rules because I didn't have a means to provide them all to the public. So I have a copy for Yvonne and for Paula, and then you can direct me how to proceed.
You don't mind just reading? That would be great.
I'll read it.
Okay, I propose that under CRB issue number 2, remote reporting, the first 2 paragraphs, it looks like that's the totality here, be replaced with this text. The practice of reporting remotely is undergoing rapid change. If minimum technical standards for remote proceedings, open paren, adequate bandwidth, a reliable internet connection, and appropriate equipment, close paren, are met, remote proceedings can be comparable to in-person proceedings, and in some ways better, open parens, identification of speakers, excellent audio quality, close parens. However, if only one of these parameters is not met or fails, even momentarily, capturing the record in remote proceedings becomes problematic and at times impossible for the court reporter. End of first paragraph. Second paragraph. The board has received feedback from multiple parties relating diverse experiences with remote reporting. Licensees have related to the board that they have reported lengthy trials remotely without any problems. Others have reported being unable to hear to produce a record and unable to communicate with the parties after having been muted by the event host. End of paragraph.
I have an issue with, and in the first paragraph, and in some ways better. I believe we should just put a period after in-person proceedings and take out the rest of that sentence.
Okay.
But other than that, I agree with the correction or the addition, edit.
Yeah, I would second that. Thank you, Ms. Brewer.
You're welcome. Okay. Moving on. Okay, number 3. Issue number 3, first paragraph, second to last line of that paragraph in the center, as well as insert the word to before stop. Next paragraph, end of the first line. Replace the word start with the word commencement. And then the third and fourth paragraphs, I once again have wording that I would suggest. And apologies once again to my fellow board members that I wasn't able to give them copies of this. I will read what I would suggest replace the third and fourth paragraphs. Additionally, the board encourages licensees to state their license number at the beginning of any proceedings in order to alert attorneys as to whether they are receiving the services of a licensee. Fourth paragraph, if this method of recording becomes more prevalent, the legislature may want to explore the possibility of mandating that the board set standards for and oversee the practice of digital recorders. Or perhaps that should be recording.
You would like us to remove the reference to the 5 reasons to be to use a licensed court reporter altogether?
Actually, thank you for pointing this out. This is not a complete replacement of paragraph 3, but instead a starting on the 4th line with the word additionally. So the first portion, the first 3.5 lines of the paragraph would remain. Consumers be aware.
So this would replace starting with additionally?
You know, let me see suggested rewording. I have too many notes for myself here. To help consumers be aware. And I also have a correction. To help consumers be aware, at the end of that line, the word has should be inserted before produced.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
The third paragraph of this issue, which starts to help consumers, if you go to the end of that line, the word has should be inserted before the word produced. And I was correct, Ms. Fenner, suggesting that my language replace the language beginning with additionally midway on the fourth line through the rest of the line of the item.
I would suggest digital recorders be monitors.
Okay.
So it reads, the practice of digital monitors.
Because we haven't referred to digital monitors at all, would you think it's clear if we just said digital recording and left it as the greater noun?
I'm fine with that.
Sorry. Would you prefer that we make it consistent throughout the document?
Yeah, I think that's a better way to go.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the comment.
My suggestion was to make consistent throughout the document, the term digital monitor, or excuse me,
Yeah.
yes, digital monitors.
Is that, can you do that?
I just want to make sure that I'm clear that in this
Oh.
issue, instead of it saying digital recording, you want it to say digital monitors.
Or you can just say digital recording / monitors, because digital recording is I think the more widely known term, correct?
Yes.
And correct, if the issue can use, when it's, instead of digital recorder, if the paragraph can use digital monitor. In place of recorder, if you can insert monitor. And through that section to be consistent.
Do you want me to use recorder / monitor?
No,
Just monitor?
that would be my preference.
Do I need to explain?
As a
what it is
layman,
in
yeah.
Another paragraph?
Right. Yeah, as a layman, I'm wondering if, yeah, we could talk about that a little bit more. Is there a place where we can define what that means, or maybe I can better understand why you think monitor would be the more appropriate word?
You want me to?
Either
why
that,
I would
or
choose.
I'll actually refer
We've
that.
got title protection language that that was adopted last fall. I've got the bill number. I think it's 156, I believe. But regardless, I'm just saying recorder is more similar to reporter. And so
Miss,
they're digital monitors that go out, my understanding. So that's why I'm suggesting we call it
Monitor.
what it is, a monitor. And I don't, correct me if I'm wrong. My thought is we don't need to define what it is if that's what we're calling them.
If we all the way through, got it. Is there a place we could define it, or is it, you're saying it's just such standard definition, we don't need to?
If, may I jump in? I think part of the issue is that they're not under the sports jurisdiction.
Sure.
So, Mr. Manine, if you read with me and see what you think. On the very first, this might be enough of a definition is where I'm going. And Mr. Dodgenham, I think to your question as well, there are firms that are using digital monitors to cover deposition proceedings, digital monitors record the proceedings, et cetera. So it seems like it is a
Yes.
definition there. Does
I'm
that work for
fine with
everyone?
that.
Me too.
I'm
That
fine.
works. Yes.
That's fine.
Okay, got it.
And I'm sorry. And perhaps there are firms that are using digital recording to cover deposition proceedings. Digital monitor, no, I apologize, never mind.
I
I
agree.
take back my comment. I just,
Don't muddy it.
yes, thank you.
And if I could make a comment, we discussed, at least once I heard monitor and at least once I heard monitors. And I would probably suggest using it in the plural since we have the practice of digital monitors or,
Okay.
I don't know if others agree with that. It's a little awkward practice of digital monitors.
I'll defer to Ms. Brewer on the correct.
Pardon me?
I'll defer to Ms. Brewer on the correct
Exactly.
punctuation and use of the word.
With Miss Fussy Pants?
Board Member Dodge Nam.
This is more probably going to be answered in understanding better the whole sunset process. But I noticed right now we're saying no legislative action needed. However, we do kind of in the sentence above talk about it may be something in the future. I understand this board is considering, I just don't know the timing, how it times with this, considering asking for legislative action on digital monitoring and even on stating your court reporters stating their license number up front. Will that coincide? I know we're not asking that just yet, but is it possible that there may be a request for legislative action by the time we submit this report?
It's up to the board. We can make it an affirmative request to the legislature if you feel that you want to. That's at the pleasure of the board.
I actually, when we were first looking at this, I got distracted, but I questioned whether if the first part, okay, the last paragraph, the sentence starts out, if this method of
Mhm.
recording becomes more prevalent, how much more prevalent do we need it to become? That is which is basically what you're saying.
Right. And
So perhaps
and
reword that.
yeah, I
Should
think
I have a suggested language if the board wants. So is the board's recommendation or kind of movement towards already requesting the legislature to take a look at this because of the prevalence? If that's the case, then the suggested language could be, since this method of recording has become more prevalent, the legislator should look at mandating the board to set standards and oversee the practice of digital monitoring.
one point of clarification, board member, are you suggesting also that we put that under legislative action needed, that we move it down to below, or do we still keep legislative action none at this time?
I'll move it down.
I think it should be moved
because
down. Correct.
That's
Great catch.
Thank you.
And wherever we had the suggestion of stating the name at the beginning, that needs to be moved into legislative action needed.
True.
And I'll find that as I'm going through with making changes.
Okay, thank you. Does that make sense to everyone else?
Yes.
Yes. That's collaboration. Still going.
We,
we s-
wait, excuse me. Board Member Tagade.
I have another item for page 102, if Ms. Brewer, you.
I do have one more, but it's at the very bottom.
Please go ahead.
Okay, I'll go ahead and state mine. So the very last sentence before the legislative action needed note on page 102, the legislature may look at mandating that the board set. So insert the word that before the board, delete the word to, and then continuing, set standards and oversee the practice of captioners in California.
And I'm open to suggestions, but am wondering if it is appropriate to add a sixth issue for workforce pipeline, or workforce development, or some version of that, and to kind of summarize the current state of affairs as it pertains to the perceived shortage and then the efforts that the board has undertaken, is looking to undertake, and then what support might be needed from the legislature. And I know it'll be a little bit redundant, but my reasoning for that is again to kind of highlight that the board is continuing to see this as a priority, and I don't believe it was. I think it is referenced in the previous document, but it's not necessarily seen as it's not highlighted as an issue necessarily, right? So I'll defer to Ms. Fenner, but.
I'm just double checking quick and I
Sure.
am not seeing it. So
Correct me if I'm wrong. Do we need to, will this be coming back to us one more time?
I'd like to have a meeting.
Right. So this is not the only issue holding things up. I wonder if we should work on some language for this I think it's well taken to include an issue number 6 and come up with some language, or is it clear enough what Board Member Tagade is requesting be included that you can come up with some language?
So
How would you suggest we do that?
I can give you some options. Board Member Tugade could give me the main points right now, and I could put them down. The board can approve that. And then if you would like to meet again to see the updated draft, otherwise you could have me work with either whoever is going to be the new chair, or if you want to delegate somebody on the board, 1 or 2 people, that would be like a sunset review subcommittee, then I could just work with them. But you need to be clear that if all they're doing is looking at, to make sure that I caught all of the changes that you presented to me, if they're doing that, I don't think that you need to see it again. And board counsel can correct me if I'm wrong. But if we get into substantive changes, it should come back before you.
To be clear, thank you for that overall. I was thinking just on this last issue, but in general, I don't think we're done, completely done. I actually had one issue on number 4, but I appreciate the fact that we can have you work with, we could either appoint a task force for this issue or have you work directly with the new board chair.
May I make a
That
statement?
makes me come back to, so I guess if you want to clarify your issues for her to include on issue number 6, let's just start from the top.
Sure.
Just-
Yeah, so I think I would look to include a summary, and I believe there is one higher up in the document related to the perceived workforce shortage. But I do think it is worth highlighting here again. But I also think it is worth summarizing here the current landscape briefly, and then the steps that the board has already taken to create a workforce pipeline. And then what the board is looking to do in the future and what legislative support may be needed there. Is that enough detail? Or
Is there legislative language or a legislative step that we need to ask them for? Because I'm not thinking of one and I don't want to miss it.
Fair enough. I think in terms of, I think continuing to work with authors on the current legislation that is moving through the legislature. And then I would say that there's additional, I guess there's not necessarily legislative issues at hand, but there are other ways the board is looking to increase the pipeline.
So there's no legislative action at this time that we're requesting.
Yes.
Okay.
I am Board Member Minaya. I'm sorry, before you move, are you good? Are you caught up?
I got her.
Okay,
her points,
all right.
yes.
Board Member Benayan?
Just to summarize what was said, I think three issues we'd like addressed or items we'd like addressed in this new issue number 6 is identifying the issue of workforce shortage supply. Number 2, identifying what the board has done to this point to address the issue. Number 3, what the board is going to do to address this issue. Is that correct? And then there is no current legislative mandate. I can suggest a legislative mandate in light of Ms. Tugada's suggestion. It's in light, suggested language would be in light of the workforce shortage. The legislator should explore opportunities to help increase the workforce supply. It's a suggestion.
For something.
Okay, then I would remove, since we don't know at this time, I would remove the legislative mandate. Okay.
Board Member Dodgenham?
And again, I don't know if we have an opportunity to request legislative action at a later date, in which case we could push on this. Maybe ambitious to address it now, but I know we've had some discussions around the need for funding to promote for new folks to go into the profession. We know there is some funding, $30 million to the courts to drive recruiting and funding. Is there anything that we would want to do or request at this time, either related to that funding or other funding to promote the profession?
And it would be other funding for sure.
Okay. Is that just too, and I defer to my more experienced colleagues, is this just too early to explore that?
Yes, I would say so.
Oh, okay.
Okay, then I withdraw the request.
So we're caught up on that issue number 6. I would like to suggest, first of all, I'm sorry, back up. Any other issues from any board members? Okay. I would suggest us on item number 4. Do we want to ask? Do we want to ask the legislature to increase? Wait, I'm sorry. Statutory license. To increase the cap? Is the cap currently 250 and 500?
Yes.
Is it appropriate at this time? Do we want to ask for that cap to be raised? Not necessarily to raise it, but is it?
Yeah, so the process is, we can change it by regulation, but the law says no more than 250, no more than 500 for firm registration.
Okay.
And so we can't go any farther than that. So I'm saying sunset review is our time to make a change, so we can change that cap. And I'm just throwing numbers out. I'm not suggesting numbers, but you could ask the legislature to cap the license fee at 500 and the firm registration fee at 1,000. And that way, with justification in the future, we can say, this is why we need it to inch up or jump up or whatever. I have no idea what's going to happen in the future, but we have the ability then to do it by regulation because the statute has been adjusted. I'm not saying that, we need to go right to the new legislative cap or anything like that. Hopefully that clarified it.
Right. And I would actually, to that point, love to add some additional context to issue number 4. Maybe addressing that 6-month buffer that the board needs to have in order to fund the TRF, and explain, and maybe just adding that our ability to continue to operate with the TRF would be, could be scaled up.
Yes.
And then in addition to adding a sentence or a paragraph as to why, then is our ask that we want to raise the cap, we'd ask them to raise the caps.
We have that ask in here. We are asking them to increase the statutory caps. We have not suggested to what.
And that's the question before the board, what to include, or just leave it.
Oh, sorry, I think it's already the legislative mandate, correct?
Currently, the cap is 250 and 500.
No, but we are requesting the legislature to increase the cap
Yes, but
Correct.
we are not.
We haven't
we're not
requested how
telling them
much
what
to increase.
Correct.
increase it to.
because we don't know what, we haven't done the study yet, correct?
We have
Okay,
not done
that's fine.
those studies.
Is there, I guess the question before is there an interest or appetite to choose a specific number, or do we intentionally want to keep it open?
I think we need to have the study before to determine what's appropriate. I think at this time wouldn't be wise to choose.
Okay, but here, if I understand correctly, please correct me if I'm wrong. This is our opportunity to ask.
We are asking, from what I understand, to increase the cap. We just don't know what we want it increased to because the Nexus study hasn't been done to determine what the appropriate increase would be. But we are asking them to increase it.
We are telling them that we're going to want that increase. I expect that at some point they would say, well, what do you want?
Mhm.
And hopefully by then we will have the studies done that they can plug into the sunset bill and say it should be increased to X, Y, Z.
Thank you.
Can I ask a point of clarification, legislative question? Is the current caps, are those specific only to our license, or are they for all licenses? Just specific to us?
It's just for our board.
Okay.
Ms. Brewer?
So also just for clarity, Ms. Fenner, it's your recommendation that we leave it as it is and not specify the amount right now until we collect more information?
Yes.
Okay.
Anything else on sunset review from the board members? Okay, so do we have any comments on the sunset review from the public?
Can I go back just a second?
Absolutely.
Ms. Brewer started to talk about a potential change on page 85, so I wrote the page number down. But then I think there was some other discussion. So just wanted her to double check her notes to see if we captured everything. Or if you just had a question that was answered.
Oh, Ms. Fenner was going to check to be sure. On the question, which we're unable to change the question number 35, there's a typo. And so
Got it.
my comment was, is this a cut and paste or is it a typographical error in retyping the question?
Thank you.
Okay. Now, I'd like to open it up to public comment on the sunset review draft report.
Thank you. This is the DCA moderator, and we've opened up the WebEx Q&A and hand raise feature to facilitate public comment. We do have a few people in line, but to remind you, if you'd like to make a comment, you may either click the hand icon to raise your hand, and Jay Holbrook, we do see your hand up, or you may look for the question mark icon, type the word comment in that text box and click send. And our call-in users may press *3 to raise their hand. So at this point, let's check in with someone logged into WebEx as Mary Pierce. Had a couple of specific questions we would prefer to hear directly from you. So Mary, I'm sending you a request to unmute your microphone, and you'll have 3 minutes with a 30-second warning. And you're
Okay.
unmuted. Yep.
Wasn't actually expecting to be called on, but I have do have a couple comments. Back to the schools, I think that we could use some more in-person options available in California. There are several schools with waiting lists. I'm waiting for the statistics, but that is my understanding. The comments or the item number 3 under your digital recording. I know you guys don't have jurisdiction over digital monitors, but you do have jurisdiction over registered firms that send them out. So if you are seeing and hearing like we are that there is consumer harm because they are being misled, and even sometimes they are having to reschedule multiple different proceedings because the notice of deposition that said stenograph only, and then they're sent to digital and they have to cancel, and everybody that prepared and made room in their day is being inconvenienced. That is consumer harm. Perhaps you could consider mandating that registered firms disclose that it's a digital at the beginning of the proceeding, rather than potentially and likely misleading consumers and thereby causing harm.
We may have addressed that with the legislation, if it would get passed, mandating that the court reporter state their license number. It would be then incumbent on the attorney. If they didn't hear the license number, that would be their flag.
And many of us are doing that, but since the registered firms that are sending out digital monitors are not requiring anything of them. I know you don't have jurisdiction over the digital monitor, but you do have the authority, I would think, to get some sort of missive or best practices for the firms that are registered and are sending this out to be transparent about who they're sending out, especially when the notice says it will be a stenographic licensee.
And I would hope and encourage any attorney that's experiencing that to file a complaint with the board, because we definitely would have cause to look into that further and do an investigation.
Okay, but do you not have any power to require registered firms to be transparent before a proceeding begins about who they've sent?
Well, there's no law that says that, so.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
And this is the moderator. And Jay Holbrook, did you choose to put your hand down, or did you want to make a comment? All right. It appears Jay Holbrook has rescinded the request for comment. Are there any other requests for comment on the sunset bill language or the sunset report language? And we have a request for comment from someone logged into WebEx as Evelyn Ma. Evelyn, I'm going to send you a request to unmute. You'll have 3 minutes with a 30-second warning. And you're unmuted. You can go ahead.
Hi, I'm Evelyn Long with Abrams Law and Con. I am piggybacking on what Mary just said, and one of my colleagues from Texas sent me some legislation that would be should be considered. they have down that the person not certified as a court reporter may engage in shorthand reporting to report an oral deposition only if the uncertified person delivers an affidavit to the parties of their counsel before the deposition begins, stating that a certified shorthand reporter is not available. Parties will stipulate on the record at the beginning of the
I'm not hearing
deposition.
you.
I don't
Moderator,
know if
your
you're
sound is-
hesitating or we're having a really difficult time hearing you, Ms. Ma.
Is this any better?
At the moment, yes.
Okay. I was just reading some proposed language that may be used, Texas. They have the same problem with digital.
Are you moving away from the computer is what I'm being told.
Okay.
If you could speak.
I can't hear.
Is this better?
Yes.
Okay. I was reading some proposed legislation that they're working on in Texas regarding what Mary is talking about, the digital recorders. And they speak about a person who is not certified as a court reporter may engage in shorthand reporting to report an oral deposition only if the uncertified person delivers an affidavit to the parties or to their counsel before the deposition begins, stating that a certified shorthand reporter is not available, or the parties or their counsel stipulate on the record at the beginning of the deposition that a certified shorthand reporter is not available. So it seems like the problem that we're having with the digitals is the attorneys don't know. And especially if it's by Zoom, they can't see the machine. And my clients who have complained said, we didn't know there was such a thing. So this would make it incumbent upon the digital to present this affidavit before the proceedings even begin.
Thank you. May I ask that you send a copy of that to DCA staff?
I will do that.
Thank you.
And this is the moderator. At this point, I do not see any further requests for comment. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
So at this point, unless the board has further comment, I would suggest that we instruct staff to make the changes that have been suggested and work with the chair to finalize the report. If the chair feels any changes staff makes are substantive, we will call a meeting in December to finalize the document. Is that, I'm seeing not, positive nods of the head.
Yes.
And with that,
Do you want a motion for that, just to make it formal?
does someone have a motion in that regard?
I'll motion to adopt the statement that the chair just made and to adopt the sunset report as with edits suggested today.
And I will second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Board Member Manayan and a second by Board Member Dodge Nam to instruct staff to make the changes and work with the chair to finalize the report. And if, I don't know if I need to read this whole thing or restate the whole thing, but the motion, but correct me if you have a disagreement with it. If the chair feels any changes the staff makes are substantive, we will call a meeting in December to finalize the document. Any further comment by the board? Any comment by the public?
And this is the WebEx moderator. If anyone has a comment on the motion, you may look for the hand icon, click that to raise your hand. You may look for the question mark icon, click that and type the word comment and click send. And any of our call-in users may press *3 to raise their hand. Are there any comments on the motion? I do not see any requests for comment at this time. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Ms. Bruning, would you call the roll?
Thank you, Ms. Brewer.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Dodge Nam.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Manayan.
Aye.
Thank you, Ms. Chugate.
Aye.
Thank you, Ms. Sunkis.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. And at this point, we will take our lunch break until 1:30.